Yep.
We live?
Oh, okay.
All right, it's time to call the Beer Board meeting for August 24th, 2017 to order. First item is approval of minutes. Has everybody had a chance to read the minutes?
Yes.
Motion to approve the minutes as written.
Second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Minutes pass. Next item. Approve of a special occasion beer permit for the Farragut Business Alliance Farragut Half Marathon Post-Race Party.
Yes, sir. The Business Alliance is having a post-race party, as you said, after the half marathon. And so the motion is to waive the $100 application fee and approve the special occasion beer permit for the Farragut Business Alliance half marathon post-race party on October 28th, 2017.
Do we have a representative? Steve, you want to come to the podium?
Good evening, Steve Krimpaski, Executive Director of Farragut Business Alliance, 10609 Chevy Drive, Knoxville. Starting about 6 o'clock in the morning on October 28th, people will start gathering in the parking lot at the old Kroger's there. And the idea is to create a festive atmosphere for the beginning and closing of the half marathon race, which and 5K that the Knoxville Track Club has been doing for several years, and to keep people occupied during the time of the race. And since the race is not going to cross Kingston Pike again, to keep people there and allow enough time for dispersal in a longer fashion. I also found out, working with the track club, that many runners nowadays enjoy beer after their race. It seems they want to put the calories back on after they've burned them off. So with that idea, we're looking at getting an opportunity for other retailers and merchants here in town to showcase their products in that. I already have several sponsors, such as Josh Hemphill, State Farm, and that to man booths to help talk with the crowds and create more of a farmers market of different businesses, so people, while they're waiting for their runners to come back in, have an opportunity to talk to area businesses, have a beer and have some food, and enjoy the event. That's the plan.
Very good. Do we have a motion?
I move to waive the $100 application fee and approve the special occasion beer permit for the Farragut Business Alliance Farragut Half Marathon Post-Race Party.
Second.
Okay. Comments, questions?
Yeah, so Steve, will sales tax be charged on sales of all the beer there?
What I have been doing, rather than use this license just for the as a fundraiser for the Business Alliance, I actually have other merchants, and I've talked to Casual Pint about supplying it. It'd be up to Casual Pint to go ahead and pay the sales tax. I mean, it's a retail situation for them.
These are taxable transactions though, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Including the other merchants too.
Okay, good. So what I see is for a $100 investment, the town gets to generate some tax revenues.
And have a really
Correct.
great community event.
Yeah.
Any other questions, comments?
None.
None?
All right, we'll vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Next item. Approval of a Class 1 on-premise beer permit for Cotton Eye Joe located at 11220 Outlet Drive.
Yes, sir. The applications are in order, and the Cotton Eye Joe currently has a beer permit, but this party will be purchasing the Cotton Eye Joe in the future. So the proposed motion is to approve the Class 1 on-premise beer permit for Cotton Eye Joe, subject to obtaining a certificate of occupancy.
Okay, is the new owner, Charles Ward, present or a representative?
Yes.
Can you step to the podium, please? If you'll state your name and your home address.
Charles Ward, 8715 Martin Mill Pike, Knoxville, Tennessee.
Tell us a little bit about the situation. You're in the process of buying,
We're in the
purchasing.
process of purchasing the Cotton Eye Joe. As you know, the owners that have had it now have had it almost 25 years, and they're both ready to retire or move on to do other things. And we have been doing some other outdoor venues and music venues and some things of this nature. So we had the opportunity to purchase the Cotton Eye Joe and negotiated the price, and here we are.
I'm going to move to approve the Class 1 on-premise beer permit for Cotton Eye Joe, 11220 Outlet Drive.
All right. Questions, comments?
What kind of other, I guess what I'm asking is alcohol training, serving, you're going to continue with, obviously with their.
I've actually been through the training service myself. Also managed the Back Porch on the Creek, which is the neighbor outdoor venue that we've been having for 2 years now.
Okay.
We've had several outdoor concerts there with beer sales, and that was through Knox County. Grew up in the restaurant business and somewhat bar business years ago.
Okay.
None?
So this isn't going to alter the scope of what was going on at the Cotton Eye Joe before you took over, basically the same operation?
Correct. Yeah, we're not going to change anything as far as that goes. Yep. It's going to stay the same.
Okay. I have no more questions.
All right, if no more questions, let's vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you.
I do have a packet here for you, if you'll
Okay.
come up here.
Sure.
This may help you with your training. Good luck in your business.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. All right, any other business for the beer board?
No, sir.
If not,
We're adjourned.
all right, and now this is the Farragut Board of Mayor and Alderman meeting for August 24th, 2017. We'll start by rising for a moment of silent prayer, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance.
That's what we're at court order.
And the pledge. Have a quorum, so we're going to proceed. And the first item is the approval of the agenda.
Move to approve the agenda as written.
Second.
Favor say aye.
Aye.
Next item is the mayor's report. Since I was out of town the last several days, I don't have much to report. But I got to see my granddaughter for the first time in 2 years, so it was a nice trip.
Can I make a statement about we've had a Fun with Fleet this weekend that was very well attended, and then we had an eclipse party at McPhee Park, which was very well attended. The staff did a fantabulous job on both of them, and it all was just a wonderful experience. So my kudos to the staff for their hard work.
Here, here.
Yeah, we all share that. Any more? If not, we go to Citizens Forum.
No one has signed up.
All right. Next then is approval of minutes from August the 10th.
I have read the minutes. They all it looks in order.
Is that a motion to approve?
That's a motion to approve.
Second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
I abstain.
One abstention. We move on to ordinances. First one is public hearing and second reading, ordinance 17-12, an ordinance for the town of Farragut, Tennessee, amending the equipment fund for fiscal year 2017-2018 budget passed by ordinance 17-09.
Sir, the equipment fund will be amended by increasing the appropriated expenditures from $123,000 to $144,000, which is an increase of just $21,000. The increase is due to the increased maintenance cost of a 2009 Ford F-150 pickup truck. The truck is scheduled for replacement in FY19, but due to these increased maintenance costs, the staff has concluded that it is beneficial to replace the truck in this current fiscal year. So the motion is to approve ordinance 1712 on second and final reading.
I'll move to approve ordinance 17-12 on second and final reading.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Down to business items. First one is approval of traffic calming measures on Thornton Drive.
David Sparks, our assistant town engineer, will be presenting that. He's here tonight. He has headed this up on behalf of the Thornton Drive residents, and this is David.
Thank you, Darrell. Before you should have the traffic calming application and for proposed traffic calming solutions. On September 21st, 2016, several of the Thornton Heights residents submitted to the town of Farragut engineering staff a traffic calming application for speeding. Thornton Heights is not represented by a homeowners association, so it was just a few of the residents that submitted that particular application. So following the policy, data was beginning to be collected using speed studies at 4 different locations. One of them did result in being determined to be eligible for traffic calming. So therefore, according to the policy, it proceeded on. A traffic team was formed with 2 staff members, Darrell and myself. Public notice was made on February 27th. We had a meeting to answer questions prior to sending out ballots to all the affected residents. After that, based on that, ballots were sent out, tabulations were made, and according to the policy, you have to have 65% of the return ballots in favor of the traffic calming devices to move on with the application process. The ballots were sent out in March, and we received 95 ballots, resulting in 82% affirming yes, they do want and prefer to have traffic calming devices. After that, the staff, myself, I created a cost, a schedule, and a cost estimate for these 4 locations, and the cost is estimated around $7,700. So the process from there, we went before the Planning Commission last week, and they voted to recommend to the board approval. So before you is a decision for approval. If you got any questions, I'll be glad to answer some. I've got some slides up here that I showed at the Planning Commission. The first one, the first couple, is just some aerial views where we try to locate the locations of these calming devices where it's most convenient, or rather I should say inconvenient, that's not inconvenient to residents, near driveways and such. So you can see there, thanks Allison, that's a street view there. Those blue dots kind of represent an area of one location. And you can see there's no driveways. Again, there's a second location, no driveways there. To a third location, got a few more driveways a little closer in this one, but that was the best location in that area. And then there's the fourth location. The next slide shows what we have on Clover Fork, a couple of, in this case, it's 3 speed cushions. 2 different views there, and that came from the internet. That is the type that was the lowest price that I had found. And this particular model, if you will, is safe for emergency services vehicles. As you can see, an ambulance or a fire truck can ride over these without being impeded by the bump, if you will. And this is the layout plan. Thornton Drive is narrow, so we would only need to have 2 cushions per location. And I believe that's it. So, any other questions, I'll be glad to answer some.
This street's currently a cut-through.
Can we make a motion first?
Make a motion.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Move for approval of installation of traffic calming measures on Thornton Drive as presented.
I'll second it.
Did you find that people were objecting to what you're doing, or were they happy to get it, or what?
Oh, there were a few that returned ballots that said no, but it was
82% approval.
It was 82% saying yes.
Yeah, well, it's rampant throughout the town, you know that.
Yeah.
It was a well-attended meeting, too, the first meeting that you all had to discuss it.
Yeah.
With a lot of aggravated residents.
Yep. I
Any
think
more?
82% showed up. at
There
the
you go.
Any more discussion?
There you go.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
meeting.
Item is approval of a McPhee Park Master Plan.
Included in the fiscal year 17 capital investment plan is the update to the McPhee Park Master Plan and subsequently moving forward with the next phase of the park. This park was last updated, a master plan was last updated 5 years ago. And late last year, the Board of Mayor and Aldermen approved a contract with Ross Fowler for this project. So the McPhee Park is a 51-acre site with approximately 35 acres left for future development. Attached to the plan, and I don't know if you have it, thank you, is the proposed master plan, which includes the following additional facilities or amenities. Racquet court area with 6 tennis courts, 4 pickleball courts, a hitting wall, and a restroom. A destination playground geared for older children, teens, and I've been at a training this week and they're telling us adult playgrounds are the next wave. So, dog park for both large and small dog areas, amphitheater with restrooms and storage, and a small meeting or prep room, disc golf course with 18 holes, and a small pavilion, large lawn area for events with 2 pavilions and restrooms, a maintenance building, an additional small pavilion and small lawn area next to the splash pad, additional parking of about 230 spaces, additional ADA walking trails, additional natural or challenge walking trails, and a variety of open picnic tables. The inclusion of these facilities that I mentioned and amenities are the result of several months of interviews, surveys, public hearings, and Board of Mayor and Alderman workshops. The Parks and Athletics Council plus the Municipal Planning Commission have approved this plan.
I'll make a motion to approve the master plan as presented.
Second.
I have a second and a first, and is there any discussion?
Oh, you bet there is.
All right, go for it.
Okay. Yes, Ron?
Go ahead.
Okay, I'm trying to understand exactly what it is we're doing here today. If we're approving this master plan, what does that do? What are we doing here? What are we approving today?
If you approve the master plan, you're simply approving the concept that's before you. It means that we don't have to do anything other than we're approving the master plan. You did this 5-6 years ago now when we went through this process. It looked a little different at that time, and so we wanted to redo it before we really got to planning the build phases of the park. So it has changed quite a bit in that 5 or 6 year period. So that's all it is this approving the overall concept for what we would like to try to build in the future. And all those, so depending on the next phase that the board elects to do, those other things could change in the future as well, depending on what the next 10 or 15 or 20 years, however long it takes to build out the park, comes into play. But this is what, based on the public comments that we received from all the public and the Board of Mayor and Aldermen and our Parks and Athletics staff and commission, that's what we have before you is a synopsis of what all those requests were from the people that participated in that.
So I just wanted to be clear, we're not authorizing any spending at this point. We're just agreeing to the overall concept, because I have a lot of questions based on the presentation, what I've seen so far as to actual quantities, how we arrived at the prices, the cost of the different phases. There's 8 different phases proposed, different ways to go at this, and I feel like we've got a lot of work to do to decide if this is how we want to go and how we are going to go about it.
That's your next agenda item, but this one strictly is just for the master plan itself. And if you like the master plan and want to move forward with the current plan that we have, then certainly we would recommend approval of that.
Overall, I like the concept of this plan. You've all heard my reservations. Don't think that this is an appropriate location for an amphitheater, and I'm concerned about the balance of what we've got at the racket facility. But it sounds like both of those, we can certainly do more investigation when we come to those phases. So overall, I'm fine with the concept.
I think in regards to the racket area, the tennis and the pickleball area, we all agree that there's going to be some changes there. We talked about possibly moving the clubhouse and adding or cutting back on some. So there's definitely going to be changes made to this plan. This is not, cut in stone.
Any more? Go ahead.
Are you talking to just the master plan? We're not talking about phasing right now.
This is just kind of the overall.
Okay.
My name is Debbie Pinchak. I live at 12618 Red Canyon Road, and I'm also a member of the Parks and Athletics Council. I've heard some negative voices from the community speaking against the near future improvements out at McPhee Park. So I just wanted to kind of present our feeling and my own personal feeling from the committee and from myself. All you had to do was attend the Eclipse party out there last Monday, and you realize what an important park and location this is for the people in Farragut. It's not just our community itself, it's the visitors. They came from as far away as Canada. And another thank you to Sue and her town staff for the amazing job that was done out there. McPhee Park's a wonderful location for events like this. But if you can see right now, it doesn't really address the needs of all people, of all our residents of all ages. It's geared mostly toward children. And when we had our surveys done, and Sue can attest to that as well, our focus groups, our forums, our surveys online, that people of all ages responded. And Ross Fowler has developed a plan for this park that just about takes into every account the citizens of all ages and all levels of activity so that there's something there for everyone. According to what we have seen just today, in fact, a publication came out in the Farragut Press that talked about our financial resources. And we do have the resources to increase the amount that we can spend on McPhee Park and just kind of push it a little bit faster ahead than it would normally be. And it looks like this can be done without any problems interfering with the road budgets and with other infrastructure projects that will probably need to be occurring in the near future. So the financial resources are there. We don't want to have to wait 10 years to see this park completed. If anyone's been around that long, you know that the first master plan was presented in 2012. So we're now on 5 years as it stands. And you lose too much if you wait 10 years to complete this project. First of all, you lose public interest. You lose because the costs go up every year that the completion of these projects are delayed. So I'd really like to see something being done at the park besides just moving dirt and a road built to nowhere. I think our citizens deserve that. I think the response was so great and so positive that people here want that park. It will attract residents. It will attract visitors. I think it does increase home values and the draw that Farragut has. We have our natural beauty, but to have a destination location like that, it can be a very big draw for an area. So I'd really like to see this done and pushed through quickly, as quickly as we can, and stay within our budget. I know that's very important, but we need to have something there, not just the road and dirt moved, so that our citizens see that work is being done, that they can take advantage of it during the time that the growth and the development is continuing, and that the excitement and the anticipation and the participation is there all the way, and that they realize it's for all the citizens of the town. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Yes, sir. May I speak?
Sure. Give us your name and address.
My name is Kelly Clancy. I live in Village Green subdivision. And I think Mrs. Pinchot was alluding to, remarks made previously at the Planning Commission. I love the parks we have. I think they're fantastic. However, there are other things that need to be attended to, specifically, again, the roads. Now, if I may suggest, the roads, if you have the greenways, the sidewalks, the bike trails, that in effect is kind of a park-like feature, a mobile one, if you will. So taking $12 to $13 million in a static park, we have many wonderful parks already. But the most important thing I think that needs to be attended to, again, is the roads. I attended a workshop several months back, and if I'm not mistaken, it was $43 million for roads to be corrected in Farragut. Mr. Myers said, well, he thought the roads are pretty good. Well, by the admission of the people at that meeting is $43 million need to be spent. I think Mr. Smith was there. Is that correct, sir?
Yes.
43 million, is that?
I believe that was the total, yes.
Okay. $13 million spent on this park. I'm not saying don't do it. I'm just saying wait. Other things need to be taken care of. That's all I have to say. And if anyone has any comments, I'll be happy to address them.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
Yeah, I agree with Mr. Clancy, and I think we all recognize that we have some issues. We've essentially condemned the property along the 6 corridors in question. We've started work on Virtue Road. We've started work on Union Road, but there's land that cannot be developed because we have declared the roads to be substandard. To say that we don't have a problem there is disingenuous at best. We've told people you can't sell your property, you can't develop it because the roads are substandard, and then to turn around and say our roads are fine, let's build parks instead. I think that is a little irresponsible. I love our parks too. I think they're a wonderful feature, but we have a public safety issue. We have roads, and not just the roads. We have storm drainage and infrastructure in town that has not been addressed in 30 years. We don't know what it is. We're trying to quantify it right now, and before we commit to spending this large a sum of money, particularly when we have 8 options out there, we haven't even really considered how's the best way to attack it. I have a hard time voting to spend $3 million this year when we don't even know how we're going to spend it. I think that we need to workshop this, figure out how we want to phase this thing, how it's going to be the most efficient way to do it, what kind of sponsors we can line up, and so before I can sign on to it, I sure want to see some more discussion, some more study, and some balance here.
I'd like to respond to Alderman Markley's comments. First of all, the $6 million is already in the CIP for this part. It's not something we're taking away from roads or from anywhere else. To develop the final 8 or 9 roads that need to be completed, it's going to take 20 or 30 years. It's not going to happen overnight. And if you're saying we need to wait on developing this, expanding this park for 20 or 30 years, it'll never get done.
Well,
the land's just going to sit there wasted.
Does it have to take 20 or 30 years to do these roads? Why haven't they been done before now?
For 30 years, we've been expanding and fixing our roads. We've been doing a great job. I think we have some of the best roads in the area.
We have some.
Well, we have a few more that need to be fixed. I'm all for this. I'm all for fixing those roads and expanding those roads. I have no question in my mind that they need to be done. But to put off expanding this park expansion any further doesn't make sense. It's been, the last master plan was approved by this board 5 years ago. Nothing's been done for 5 years. We waited. I waited patiently. Here it is. This is the time to act. This is the time. The money is there. We're not talking about spending $13 million. We're talking about spending $6 million to get the ground graded, the property graded, and get a road in. Then we're looking at other means of funding the rest of the development, possibly through private sponsorships, whatever else.
So what are we going to do with $3 million when we pretty much agree that it really makes sense to do the mass grading up front?
Mass grading will give us the great lawn and give us more trails.
But we're not going to get that done for $3.1 million, so what are we going to do?
6.1.
Yeah.
That's $6 million is in there. As Mr. Smoke had told us earlier, all we're doing is taking money that was earmarked down the road and moving it forward. The money is there in the CIP. We're just moving it forward. We're not taking it from anywhere else. It's there for the park, and it's been there. So let's use it. Let's get something done with that property.
Okay, I'm going to weigh in. I agree with both of you. Both need to be looked at. We need to be able to balance our money as far as the funding for different things. I can't get a lot of heartburn over the substandard roads that we've got 2 that need to be worked on. That's Union and Virtue. I don't think that at this moment that Boring Road would be something that we'd consider that's one of the substandard roads. I don't think that there is anything being held up by not doing, or by doing Boring, whether we do Boring Road or we don't do Boring Road. There's other roads I feel the same way about. I think that the 2 that we've got to focus on, we're focusing on. We've got money put in place for both. Darrell's done a wonderful job on that, and we have a chance to do something with Virtue in the future. We've got money that's budgeted for that. The other roads, are something that I feel we need to go talk to the landowners, see what they're going to do. Some of them may want to sell, some of them may not. By learning what they want to do, then we'll know what to do as far as trying to budget for roads in the future. As far as the park, you said, Bob, that you could probably find somebody that could grade that and put a road in for quite a bit cheaper than that. Right now, I think what we're looking at is really just approving the master plan. I think the phases is what the next item is on here, if I'm not mistaken.
Can we go ahead and vote on the master plan first and then move on to that discussion?
I believe that would be
please?
good, yeah.
Yep. I have no more questions.
Did we have a,
We have a motion and a second.
all right. Any more discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
All opposed?
No.
All right.
So noted.
Next item is approval of McPhee Park Phase 3.
Mayor, I guess I'll take this one. We as we looked through the various options with you earlier at the workshop, what we wanted to do is try to determine, based on our budget, which this year we have $350,000 for design. Next year in the proposed CIP we have $3 million for construction. And we have a 2020 year where there's nothing planned, and then again in 2021 we have $350,000 in design for whatever that next phase would be, and then in 2022 we have another $3 million. So overall, in the next 5 years, we've got $6 million in construction monies that we have allocated toward the next phases of McPhee Park. All those were projected numbers based on not even having the master plan at the time, nor knowing what these quantities would be. And so now, with the help of Ross Fowler, they have come back with several different options for you. I'll see you have these on the email. Several different options for you. We have a 2.1 million phase, which is looking at, if on the screen that you have before you, would be adding some parking spaces around the splash pad area, as well as a maintenance shed for our facility up there, and a couple of small pavilions and some parking. There's a next phase, or a different phase, sorry, not next phase, a different phase opportunity would be to look at the whole entire site and what it would cost to mass grade that site. So when you look at the mass grading and some initial, water sewer lines like that need to go through the site, we're looking at around $3.3 million just for the mass grading. And then another phase option, it would be a $3.8 million phase. And this again would be to add some parking spaces around the site there at the current splash pad, but then adding the additional parking, adding the golf, disc golf area, as well as getting all the way around to the large and the small dog park to the north of the screen there. Another option, again at $4.8 million option, would be again to do the mass grading, as well as do the parking and a pavilion, along with around half or a third of the great lawn that we've talked about previously, as an option in order to at least get some additional parking and some use out of the park with the great lawn area. There's another option for $5.6 million phase. This would be to include the racket facilities and come in from the north entrance. It would not be mass grading the entire site, just utilizing the space that we would be improving. That'd get you about half of the great lawn, along with parking, as well as a restroom facility and hitting wall and a large pavilion restroom along that great lawn area. Next is a $6.1 million phase, and this actually gets the road put all the way through the site along with the mass grading for the majority of the site. It also includes some trails that would loop around the great lawn area, as well as the pavilion. Next is a $6.6 million phase, which is very similar, a little bit more grading area there. But it also includes at the very far west end of the park another large pavilion, as well as additional parking spaces around that large pavilion area. And finally, we looked at a $6.9 million phase that, again, includes all the grading for the whole entire site, about half of the Great Lawn area, and again, parking and the tennis structure, the racket facilities that we talked about earlier. So there's several different options. Ross Fowler, Mike Fowler, and David Craig are both here and can answer any specific questions that you have about the various sites, the quantities, the assumptions that go into each of these areas. What we tried to do was find out ways that we could maybe get something within our current $3 million budget, and we see those are very limited. And then secondly, look at ways that we could interact some of these phases and what would make sense to go from, say, a next phase 3 to a phase 4 or 5 and so on down the road. So I know we talked about these all in a prior workshop tonight just to kind of give you a baseline for what we're looking at. And tonight, what we would be looking for, if the board's ready to do that, is to give us direction on which one of these options that you like the best and want to move forward with. If you do select an option that you can agree on, then we can work with Ross Fowler in coming up with a contract that then they would come back to us in a month or so and propose based on designing that next phase. So although your actions tonight are not necessarily allocating money for any of these projects right away, you would be in essence moving the ball forward towards making those projects happen in the future. So with that, I will be happy to try to answer any questions that the board may have. I know Sue is here and Mike and David both as well.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the $6.1 million phase.
And I'll second.
All right, discussion.
I have a difficult time supporting something that depletes our CIP to such an extent. I'm really struggling with that.
It's already approved in the CIP.
But it drops our CIP fund balance in fiscal year 2019 to $29,670. I'm struggling with that. I have a problem with that.
That's for 1 year. It should be back.
You're correct. It's for 1 year, but it still concerns me.
Now, Bob in our workshop mentioned that he thought that the grading could be done at a lot less money.
Yeah, I think I could move the town of Farragut into Roane County for $6.9 million. I mean, the mass grading here, what kind of quantities are we talking about here? Do we have any actual cut sheets? How much cut, how much fill do we have here? I've not seen anything to justify that, and I drive around on that piece of property, and I cannot, I mean, it boggles my mind. The quantities, I mean, I don't see any basis for this. I mean, the feet of road, the feet of underground utilities, it's just, I don't see it. And I can't vote for something like this that to me, from my background in construction development, seems wildly outrageous, basically. Where do we get to these numbers? And I know we've got money put out there, but to spend $6 million for this, I've got a real problem with that.
We may not spend $6.1 million. It may be that it comes in at $4 million or $3.5 million. I think 6.1 was probably. Well, I'd like to hear from the design people. Could Mr. Fowler or Mr. Ross step to the podium? Can you step to the podium?
The 6.1 million estimate was based on quantity takeoffs from GIS topography and from the designs. So I don't know how to answer more than that. What would happen in the next phase of design is that you would authorize a survey for the property, which would be an on-ground survey, and we would go through a schematic design process, and there would be a cost estimate at schematic design, design development, and at construction documents. So the more we get into it, the more detail we have. This is a planning document. This is not a construction document. So we're dealing with the best information that we have. Parks are a part of our business. Right now, we're working on a $15 million park in Knoxville, the Lakeshore Park. The grading quantities and cost per cubic yard are based on real-time information from a real project. So don't know how to answer more than that.
You got questions?
They're based on real-time information, quantities. I mean, I don't see any quantities here. How many? I mean, I've told there's about 2,200 feet of pavement in here, which is less than half a mile. I'm just having a real hard time making these numbers make any kind of sense to me. They just seem wildly expensive for what we're looking at here. I mean, I don't see any basis for it. So if we're approving this, we're approving $6.1 million to build this phase, but we don't really, I mean, in my mind, I don't see that value in what we see here.
So what you're saying is you think it can be done for less?
Yeah.
But we're proposing 6.1. If it's done for less, then that's in our favor.
So what are we going to do with the other? Say we save $3 million. What are we going to do with that then? We approved $6 million. I just think there's so many questions here that I'm going to have a hard time supporting this.
We won't know the actual number until they come back with their results.
I'm sure you know people who can tell you probably pretty close what it would cost if they did it. All right.
Yeah,
So what did we spend again for this master plan and these estimates? What was the contract?
Sue, do you remember how much Mr. Fowler probably remembers $50,000 or $60,000. I can't remember exactly.
I think it's around 50.
Yeah.
Okay, you don't get a whole lot for that. I understand. There's a whole lot of work needs to be done. So I would like to make an alternate motion that we contract to have some actual quantities done, some basic quantifiable drawings done, that we can get a better handle on what we're looking at spending here.
Well, aren't we going to have that brought back to us for another?
Well, again, let me kind of help a little bit with the process of how this would all work. If the board elects that you like the $6.1 million option, then our next process would be to work with Mike and David, getting a proposal from them to do exactly what you just asked for, the actual quantities, to get the survey work done, to find out what it would cost and do the design work to build this project, basically. You would have a contract you'd have to approve with that, so that's that's the first expenditure that you would have, was a contract with them to do the design work for that next phase. They would work on that, and then they would come back at some point in time when they're finished, and they would tell us basically, hey, we're done, here's the construction documents. We would bid those out, and then we would take those bids back, and we would get a number based on those bids. And then the board would again have an opportunity to approve those bids or not approve those bids, depending on if you wanted to make those expenditures or not at that time, which would really be at that point into our next fiscal year. That'd be planning for our next fiscal year. We would have a better understanding at that point of our end of year sales tax revenues that we're going to get this year, and also what our budget's looking like for the following year. This past year, we were able to put $4 million into our CIP. We always budget conservatively out for our CIP year. So next year we've budgeted $2.5 million, and then from general fund to the CIP. And then in the final 3 years of our CIP, we've projected $2 million each year coming from our general fund to our CIP. Over the last, I think, 5 or 6 years, we've been able to allocate at least $3 million a year from our general fund into our CIP. So we've been able to bump up actually a lot of projects over the last few years based on our sales tax revenues. So Again, you're not making a call tonight specifically on having to spend money on this project, but you are going to be making a decision on how you think you'd like that project to go. If it comes in over 6.1 million, down the road, you can certainly say, no, we don't want to do that. We can stop it right now. We've designed it. We'll go back to the drawing board, or we can cut it back and do a smaller amount of the project. Or if it comes in less than that, then yes, you would have monies available to put back into the CIP reserves, or work on another project, or add to this project, whatever the case may be. Mike, is there any other work you do in your next phase and study?
Well, once we get a budget, whatever the budget is, if it's 2 million, 3 million, 6 million, whatever it is, we go through typical phases for architectural and engineering projects. It starts with schematic design, which takes this document and brings it up a level based on field topography, real survey data. We do a cost estimate at that point. We discuss all that with you, and if everything's okay, we move on to design development. We develop more drawings. We do another cost estimate. We meet with you again. Again, we get confirmation. And then the third time we go through that same process is construction documents. And after construction documents, of course, the project's ready to be bid. You don't have to bid it. You can decide to hold it, to roll it, and keep it there. But that's just a typical project for everything we do. And to help you understand, Alderman, these estimates that we make are off of quantity takeoffs of these drawings. But these drawings are not, as I said, they're not detailed drawings, they're planning drawings. So we're applying what we experience in our world every day of public projects, public realm projects all over the state. We're experiencing cost of our projects. And so that data feeds into our assumptions about our cost estimates. But in the end, the real cost estimate is the bid. So that's at the point you really have to decide.
I guess what I'm saying is, if that's all we get for $6.1 million, I got a real problem. We need to figure out how to get a whole lot more stuff into here for $6.1 million. I've heard the number, is it $13 million for to be able to complete park out?
12.8.
Yeah. See, that's, yeah, I want to see a whole lot more for my money than what I'm seeing here. So I don't know what we need to do to get there, but I'm vigorously opposed to spending that kind of money and not getting anything more than this out of it.
Well, this is a starting point. I think we need to get the process moving and find out what those numbers are. And we're not going to be able to do that unless we approve something and get the numbers back.
Because what I'm hearing you say is you don't have any real good estimate of how much grading is going to have to be done. You haven't done a real topographical survey.
We have GIS topography.
Okay, so you basically.
And we've done site cross sections, and we've done our own estimates of the grading and the quantities of grading. Okay. So we have an estimate, but I'm uncomfortable with that because this site is, all the new parts of development are totally wooded.
So it's a ballpark. I understand what you're saying, and you have to do that to get the ball rolling.
Yeah.
I'd like to see those quantities. I mean, I really would. I'd like to see how many cubic yards you're talking about moving here. How many square feet of asphalt we got, how much curb and gutter, how many feet of what size underground drains and stuff like that. And just kind of kick it around with some professionals out there and see, does this make sense?
Well, you're going to have that opportunity.
Yeah, I don't have any problem with that. I think that I feel like that for you to have really good information to make decisions upon, you need to move forward. Now, what you do with that, whether it goes beyond a particular level, that's only something you can decide. So that would be the same advice we give all of our clients.
We are doubling the budget this year for the engineering part of it, correct? The design from 350 to 700,000.
We haven't changed anything in our budget as of right now.
Okay, but that is the proposal, that would.
That is not the proposal at this time. Now, again, we need to find out from the board which option you'd like to try to study and move forward with. And at that point, again, we'd get with Ross Fowler and we'd talk to them about a proposal. They'd give us a proposal back of what that would cost. If it's more than where our budget is, then certainly we would come back to the board and talk to you about that at that time. If it's less, then we can move forward with what we have currently in the budget.
I don't have a proposed motion attached to my packet here. I don't know if I'm missing something here. Or, are we trying to decide?
That's the proposed motion, proposal of option.
Okay, so we're trying to figure out which of these options we're going to.
Which phase?
Which will be phase 3? Which one of these options will actually be?
Phase 1 and phase 2 are already completed.
Is that separate from where we're putting, obviously I understand we're tied to only the fiscal year that we're currently in. So everything beyond is just.
It's just projected. Yes, ma'am.
Just a projection.
Yes, ma'am. Absolutely. So any of those future CIP years can change based on revenues, expenditures, projects, priorities from the board, whatever it is that you all decide are your priorities. And certainly, and it does change every year. Some projects get pushed back because they don't get quite fully started in 1 year. So many things can change. But what we have right now in the budget is the money for design for the next phase.
Which is the 350,000.
Which is a $3 million phase, correct. So it could be more, but we don't know yet until we, again, get with Ross Fowler. But again, it's your decision what option you'd like to move forward with.
Mayor, we have a couple of speakers tonight.
Let's hear from them.
John Mills, 221 Smith Road. Actually, I wasn't going to talk tonight. I was going to sit here and be quiet.
Get closer.
Okay, is that better? And thank you, Alderman Markley, for bringing up these concerns and all that. I really appreciate your diligence in looking at that. The question I had is, let's say that you approve $6.1 million. Let's say you go that way. Is Ross Fowler, are they going to then come back and say, we now need money to give you Alderman Markley's answer his questions? I do have, this is starting to sound a lot like the Affordable Care Act. Let's pass it to see what's in it. And I'm a little concerned about that. So I would like to know more about whatever it is you approve. Then what do you have to spend in order to answer the questions that have been asked?
We're not spending the money tonight. We're asking for them to come up with the designs and tell us what it's actually going to cost. Is that correct?
Well, what you're asking them to do, yes, is come up with the concept and design for the next phase. Part of that work will be having to do what Mike just kind of stepped out and talked about, the different surveys, the different cost estimates, the schematic designs that will give you what you're looking for, which is a harder cost estimate. And yes, that is additional work and labor and a lot more work, I'm sure, than what they have currently we've asked them to do, which is really more conceptual is what we've asked them to do with this master plan.
So let me ask this, Alderman Markley, is this where you think, put aside the $6.1 million, is this what you think the next phase should be?
Yeah, that is the question, really.
If I were undertaking this as a project myself, that's the only way it would make sense to me. Get the road to mass grading in, get your infrastructure in, and you can hang anything you want off of that.
So are we, I know I'm probably asking the same question a different way. We are approving a phase tonight. If we decide to approve this phase, are we also, we're not approving an increase in the budgets the current fiscal year budget, we're not approving anything else, we're just approving this phase. What are we approving?
You're not approving any expenditures tonight whatsoever. This is simply to then give direction, again, to Ross Fowler, and to come back to us and tell us what it would cost to do that next design for what you're now approving.
Okay.
If you decide that that's just too much money, we don't need to spend that, then you don't have to spend it on the design. If you decide, well, instead of doing all of that work, let's just do part of the work. Maybe it's the first phase that Mr. Fowler talked about, the schematic design. Let's say we just want to do that first and kind of see where that's at. Then you could go that far and stop with that. We can work out an arrangement with them to do that work. So, again, there's a lot of stopping points that the board has in order to say, no more, we don't want to go any further. But again, I think they've talked about, I know Alderman Markley's been concerned about the cost for what this next phase would be. We really can't get better numbers until they do additional work to get us there.
Yeah, and I think my concern is the press is going to, the newspaper's going to say Farragut approves $6.1 million to do phase 2 or phase X of this park, and it's going to include this mass grading. So every contractor out there is going to say, okay, they got $6.1 million to do this with. So how do you get around that? I mean, how do you get to some reasonable, this has to be quantified, and I think it needs to be very carefully vetted, because I don't see $6.1 million worth of value to the town of Farragut. Yes.
That's the great thing about being a public entity, is that we don't get to hide anything. We have to talk about all these things in a public forum, so everybody does get a chance to find out what our budget is and how much we have available and what we're looking at and things like that. So unfortunately, that the public bid process is a very transparent process. We want to make it that way so the public knows exactly what we're spending. But sometimes that can cause your bids to get out of whack, maybe, than you could if you had a private bid process.
Well, and essentially, we really have to have an accurate, complete set of construction drawings that shows quantities, cut and fill, all the essential elements to cost this thing, but then getting meaningful bids on it. That's going to be the tricky part. But once we have a real set of plans, and we're talking about spending $300,000, right, to get a set of drawings done.
Again, I don't know what the cost is going to be, but we have that allocated in the budget. Again, it's all based on the phase that you would like to look at as an option for this next phase of McPhee Park. If we can get an agreement on that from the board, then we can start sitting down and talking to our designers about how much that next phase would be.
This one looks pretty simple right here compared to the others that have tennis courts and pickleball courts and amphitheaters and dog parks. This one don't have that. Yeah. And
$4 million project to me.
But regardless, it's a as far as what they would have to do versus what they'd have to do on the rest of them, the options. I think this would probably be one of the lesser ones, except for that.
Let's hear from her.
Hi, I'm Valerie DeBow. I'm on Evans Road, and I'm the chair of the Parks and Athletics Council. Debbie did an excellent job in support of the master plan, and as you guys are all in doubt as to what phase you're willing to support, I thought I would speak on behalf of our council. We've all been with Sue. We've seen the Survey Monkeys. We've spoken with other citizens. We're aware of what the needs and wants are of our community. I'm in support, and our committee is in support of the 6.1 million phase. I think it's a great starter because it is a spine of everything that would be, coming off of it. That's one of the major expenditures. I think if you delay it, you may possibly see an increase in, what that's going to cost to do all that if we wait another 5 years. But as Alderman Pavlin had spoken about the need of the amphitheater, should they decide not to put in the amphitheater, then we haven't committed to putting that in that phase. So starting with this phase would be an excellent starting point, in my opinion, in our committee's opinion, because it is the heart of everything, and there still are some things that everyone can benefit from. As Sue had stated, it would be able to support events through the Great Lawn, as you had seen through the Eclipse Party. Many people traveled all across the country to come down here, as well as walked from their neighborhoods. So I think it's a great starting position to, put Farragut on the map with, a bigger phase of the park without having to commit to more specific activities. All right, right now it would just be a general thing. So if you're looking to, start with something, we're all in agreement at that phase. This phase right here would be the one to start with.
Great, thank you very much.
Mr. Clancy, do you want to speak again?
Yes, please.
Okay.
My name is Kelly Clancy. I live at 376 Dominion Circle in Village Green. Again, I spoke last week. I'm not opposed to the parks, but I don't know. I may be mistaken, but 6.1 million, is that not the largest expenditure that has been made? Farragut? Correct me if I'm wrong.
That would probably be the largest single expenditure that we had, yes, sir.
I thought so, Mr. Smoke. One thing you all may want to consider, number one, workshop this to death. But probably the best thing is to have a referendum from the community. Do we want this or don't we? I think that's the most judicious thing to do. $6.1 million is a lot of money. Would you all not agree?
I agree. That's what we're here for tonight. We've had a lot of feedback prior to this particular meeting. I wish you could have attended those. So far, you're the only negative person that's stepped up to talk about it.
Sir, with all due respect, I'm not being negative. I'm just pointing out things. Once I became aware of this, I think this is pretty much, as a responsible citizen, we need to look at.
Looking at it, that's what we're here for tonight.
And focus groups, you spoke to certain people, and I'm sure you have done your due diligence, but I think a referendum is what needs to be done.
When I was on the Parks and Athletics Committee 6 years ago, we did a lot of surveys, a lot of workshops. We gathered an awful lot of information. Everybody that we talked to was in favor of some aspect of this park at that time. No negative comments. Here it is 5 years later. We've gone through the same process again, workshops. We've done surveys. The Parks and Athletics Council has been involved in this. And again, you're the only person so far that stood up and against it. So for 5 years, I've been hearing nothing but positive things about this park. People want to get it started. People want to get it completed. We're at the beginning stage. We're getting ready to move forward. And all we're doing right now is we're asking them to come back with more information as to what the cost is going to be.
But you're going to make a vote to go ahead and approve a $6.1 million deal.
No, we're going ahead and asking them to come up with the designs for this phase. Once we see what that is, then we have another chance to vote and decide. Okay. That's all we're doing right now. We just want to get something started so we can find out what the costs actually are. It could be, as Mr. Markley says, Alderman Markley says, this could come back to be $2 million.
Well, as
we
you
don't
said,
know.
Sir, I'm the only negative voice, and I don't want to be a killjoy, but a lot of people have been uninformed about what is going on. And even if it is 350,000, 700,000, I've heard numbers. Initially, I thought it was going to be 3 million. Now it's 6.1.
5 years ago it was 6 million.
Okay. Even so, my point is that the overall population of Farragut needs to be made aware of it, and make a choice, yes or no. I don't think that's unfair.
I think the newspaper's done a good job of putting it out there. We've got the Shopper and the Press, and I think the Sentinel. I think everybody's pretty much put it out there and for everybody to see, and that's what we wanted. And of course, once this next phase is Ross Fowler, if we approve that for them to do that, then we'll have more discussion on it. And of course, the public is always welcome, as is the newspaper.
Again, I was made aware of this 2 weeks ago. So, and I think I'm a pretty informed citizen. I didn't know. But that's why I came and I've spoke last Thursday and today. Because I think this is important. This is, stewardship of Farragut's money. And I think you all have done a really great job overall. I truly mean that. But there's other things, roads need to be attended to, period. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Cheryl Nels.
Cheryl Nels, 221 Smith Road. I have a suggestion that might help. Perhaps if we rename, make each of those slides Plan A, Plan B, take away that $sign, and that might help with the confusion, because I do also agree with the idea that Mr. Markley said, that we might put into some contractor's mind that that's a number that is out there that we're ready to use. So that would be my suggestion, if there's a way to rename those phases as we're talking about them and take away the $sign.
I like that suggestion. That's
Excellent
excellent.
suggestion, and I had just designated this one Plan F. And that was going to be my suggestion. We make an alternate motion because I don't like this. We're putting prices on this. We have no idea what this thing's going. We don't have a set of plans yet.
I agree with that.
So I think at this point, I'd like to introduce an alternate motion that we approve the 2016 McPhee Park Master Plan Update, Plan F, which is the one we see before us. Do we have a second for that?
Yeah, I'll second that, yeah.
Any discussion?
I just want to follow up on Mr. Clancy's point, because it does strike me. The Everett Road project was, what, 4.2 million? About that, maybe?
I think so, total.
That was the most expensive road project we had ever done in the town of Farragut. And we all thought that was very daunting and an impressive thing. And here we are talking about $12 million. And I love our parks, but we're talking, and if the push is, from what I feel the push is, it's $12 million over a decade. If I have $12 million to spend over a decade, I'm not sure that a park is what I would spend that $12 million on over a decade, but that's just me. It's just a concern. Having said that, if we're going to choose an option, I would agree with Plan F.
All right, we have to have an action of some kind.
We've got a motion and second.
Yeah, we just need a vote.
We need a vote.
And what is the motion?
The motion is that we approve the 2016 McPhee Park Master Plan Update, Plan F, which is the one you see on the screen before you. We're going to rename it Plan F.
Being Phase 3.
To be Phase 3.
Mm-hmm. Any more discussion then? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
And now we move to the town administrator's report.
Thank you, Mayor. We have a couple of folks here tonight from our Introduction to Farragut class. I know they're getting credits for being here this evening, so we appreciate them coming to our board meeting tonight. We'll have our next class this coming Wednesday night, and that'll be our history class. So that's always an exciting one for the class to learn a little bit about the history of our town, all the way back to the early settlers. The other thing we have going on next Monday and Tuesday, which is very important, are strategic planning public meetings. We've got one on Monday afternoon at 3 o'clock here in the community room, and we have another one on Tuesday evening, the 29th, at 6 p.m. in the community room. We've been working with the board and with our department heads on revising and updating our strategic plan for the town, and so this is going to be the opportunity for us to get public feedback from those in the community to see if we're heading in the right direction for our future 10-year goals and objectives. And so we certainly would appreciate all those that can attend to be there and give us their feedback at that time. And Mayor, that's all I have to report.
All right. Report. He's not here.
He's not.
So we are now adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. I did pull up that priority-based budgeting